I want to thank the fair organizers for having us here and for allowing us to spend an hour, about an hour with you to talk about United States projects and United States artists. I mentioned I am a board member of it. We also have another board member in the audience, Todd Simon from Omaha is here. He happens to not only be a member of the board of United States projects, he's chair of a separate board, which is United States Artists Projects. We have another Chicagoan, well-known Chicagoan, Sean Donnelly, who couldn't be with us tonight, who is also director of the United States Artists, and I would be remiss not mentioning her in this audience as well. The folks who are going to speak to you and who will answer your questions at the conclusion of their remarks are as follows. Our founding executive director, the operation has been in place since 2005, is Catherine DeShaw at my far right. She has had a distinguished career as an arts manager, a consultant to international nonprofits, not-for-profits, and philanthropists, truly grounded in the arts in the most broad-based way. On my immediate right is Deborah Daring, an artist, curator, educator, a Chicagoan, spent almost every moment of her life here. Her MFA is from the Art Institute of Chicago, and she has shown widely in the United States and abroad, most recently in Kassel, we were talking about, Germany. And she has availed herself successfully of the United States Artists Project opportunity. And the other gentleman on the panel is Inigo Maglano Ovalle, born in Spain, but for many years an integral part of the Chicago arts community. He is a professor of art theory and practice at Northwestern University. He shows widely in museums and galleries around the world. There's a show of his right now at Christopher Grimes Gallery in Los Angeles of new work. And he, I should add, is a 2001 MacArthur Genius Award winner, and in 2011, a United States Artists Fellow as well. So that's the team that we've got up here. And to kick this off, we're going to ask Kathy DeShaw to give you an overview of the United States Artists' activities. Kathy DeShaw.
Thank you, Jack, and thank you, Deborah and Inigo, for joining us this afternoon. And thank you for coming to our Dialogues presentation. I'm going to do just a very quick overview of our work at United States Artists. I've got just a sort of zippy little PowerPoint here to give you just the context of who we are and the work that we do. United States Artists basically fills in much of the vacuum left by the drop in funding at the National Endowment for the Arts that occurred in the 1990s. With the Contract of America, 200 newly minted freshman men and women, senators, congressmen, congresswomen, who symbolically basically aced out artist fellowships at the National Endowment for the Arts. We were created in 2005 by leaders at the Ford, Rockefeller, Rasmussen, and Prudential Foundations who launched us with $22 million in startup monies, and we're based in Los Angeles. Our mission is to invest in America's finest artists and illuminate the value of artists to society. The illumination piece comes from a very specific data point and some research that was done that created our organization, which told us that 96% of Americans valued the arts, but only 27% valued artists. It's like, what is this odd disconnect? We look at a model in many ways that is sort of old as time. Traditionally, patrons supported the arts. Individuals supported artists in the history of the world. Then the church got involved, and the church became enormous patrons. The cathedrals of the world are filled with some of the greatest art of the world. And then often along the way comes government. Well, government funding for artists in this country has really truly failed, and so we have circled back in the creation of United States Artists to patrons. And in many ways, we think of the patrons of today of the arts much like the Medicis of the 1500s. And, you know, we brought this idea of supporting artists back to the people, we the people. Our signature program is USA Fellows. The math is pretty simple, 50, 50, 50. 50 artists a year receive $50,000 each, and they come from all across the country. Our ultimate goal is to raise $50 million to permanently endow this program. We're doing that to get rid of that government high and low support of artists, which has taken place for the last couple hundred years. Plan is to fund this forever. Those $50 million will permanently endow 50 fellowships a year. And here's Inigo and his work, Dirty Bomb. And Inigo, like Jack said, got our fellowship last year, and I've known of his work for years, so it was a real treat for me to honor him with this award and be with him today. We've brought that idea of supporting artists now to Main Street with a website that we launched about 2 years ago, which is called USA Projects. It gives artists the power to ask, donors the power to give. It gives artists and donors the power to connect, and then it provides funding for artists to create. It allows someone to give as much as a little as $1 from one person to one artist for one project. We're different from other crowdsourcing sites in that only credentialed artists are allowed into USA Projects. Award winners, residency winners, artists who've gone to art school, who have taught at art school. So there's a level of vetting that takes place to get into the website. All the gifts are tax deductible. So anyone who makes a gift to USA Projects gets a tax deductible form thanking them for their gift. We also offer matching funds. For any project that goes up into the website, at least 5% of that project's goal is matched by matching funds from donors who have supported us, corporations, individuals, foundations. Today, 700 plus artists have posted projects on the site, 800,000 people have visited the site, and we have 28,000 members. Of those members, 19,000 have made gifts. The average donation is very high. It's about $123. That compares to a site like Kickstarter, where the average gift is about $45. We've also raised $400,000 in matching funds to date, and more funds are coming in every day. The results are also terrific. 78% of all the projects on the website fund. That compares again to a site like Kickstarter, which is 44%. The artist receives about $9,200 on average. Lowest, maybe some gifts or projects about $2,000. The highest, about a month ago, one artist raised $122,000 for a film. So, and every week we're hearing about more artists who want to post larger projects. We're talking to someone now about a $600,000 project. Thus far, we've raised $3 million, and that money's gone into artists' hands. Deborah has posted a project in USA Projects, and she'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute, called Just Us at Work. So who will guarantee America's finest artists the freedom to create? We the people. United States Artists creates that powerful connection between artists and donors. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will go to questions a little bit later and have some interplay on the panel, but I will now turn it over to Deborah Daring to speak about the project's end of our activity.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I think I heard about USA Projects about 18 months ago, and I kind of filed it in the back of my brain as something very interesting, something that would be potentially helpful in raising funds for a project. And in 2011, I was in Kassel, Germany for a residency, and met a judge during that period of time, and also learned a little bit about the Documenta exhibition that was being planned for 2012. And in January 2012, this judge called me and said, if you would like an opportunity to exhibit here while Documenta is being run this summer, you could actually exhibit in the entrance hall of the place where I work, which was this huge Office of Justice very near the Documenta site. And I think he asked me too because I had shown him some work that I had done in South Africa. I had worked with a group of artists called the Kaiskama Art Project. This project is mostly women, and they are very fine embroiderers, and they've done quite a few pieces based on Western art historical works. They've reinterpreted these art historical works in light of their own Xhosa history. So he said that this opportunity was available to use any way I wanted to use it, and I thought about these women and the possibility of perhaps bringing some of the women to work in the entrance hall of the Amtsgericht, and then this idea of justice and justice working together kind of formed, and I proposed this idea to him, and he said yes, I could do that. So the only barrier really to doing it was funding, because there was no funding available from the Offices of Justice or really anyone in Kassel. So I thought about USA Projects and very quickly called them, and they were very gracious and said, yes, we can post a video and you can raise funds for this project. So I think the thing that I appreciated about USA Projects, one, was they were excited about the project. They approved it very quickly. I quickly developed a video, and I think within 1 week of submitting this video, the campaign was up and running. I set the campaign time limit at 30 days, and even though the project was going to be quite a bit more than the $5,000 that I set as a goal, I knew that it was also there was a potential for raising more funds than the $5,000 limit. So all these things I learned with the help of a representative from USA Projects who kind of walked me step by step through the fundraising process. And in 30 days, after a lot of phone calls and work and setting perks for people to get in exchange for support, I had raised $5,500 through USA Projects. So the project ran from June 1st to September 10th this summer, and it was a very exciting project. 2 artists from the Kaiskama project from South Africa came. We worked just about 100 days in Kassel together. We were able to see the Documenta exhibition. We were actually able to participate in certain aspects of the Documenta exhibition, and it was a life-changing experience for these 2 artists from rural South Africa, and it certainly was a life-changing experience for me as well. So I thank USA Projects for this opportunity to post this project and to raise some of the funds related to it.
And what was your total goal? You had a much bigger goal.
Yeah, the project cost $30,000, and I went back and forth in terms of should I ask for 10 but as you know, with many of these fundraising sites, if you don't raise the whole amount, you get nothing. So I set the goal a little bit lower, hoping that there would be more funds eventually coming in, and $5,500 was good. We developed a lot of work this summer. It's still for sale. We're still fundraising, so please see me after the panel if you'd like to contribute to the project. I also did some fundraising through Fractured Atlas, and that's also a good fundraising
Great
platform.
organization.
So I was happy to be able to work with USA Projects, but I also did investigate other fundraising sources, and am still investigating sources to continue to pay for the project.
Great.
Deborah is new to my life. We just met as a result of this. I have to take a moment of personal privilege. When I, as a trustee of United States Artists, saw the list of the folks who were going to be $50,000 fellows last year, and I saw Inigo Maglano Evalle, and I thought back to that first show at the Cultural Center. You've come a long way, baby. In you go.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up because that show at the Cultural Center, it was a project. It was a group of sculptures, gelatin sculptures using ballistic gelatin and bright neon colors that were shot into by marksmen with 9mm hollow points to create these beautiful little flowers and follow the wound cavitation. This is a crazy idea of a sculpture that will melt in about a month, right?
Nice.
Now, that show, those sculptures, in part, and a subsequent show at then my first commercial gallery, Feigen, was funded by the NEA in 1995. So I was one of the last artists, individual artists, to be funded by the NEA. Subsequently, so there's a kind of a real tie.
Interesting.
Subsequently, in 97 and 98, I, along with a number of artists at different periods of time, were invited by the Rockefeller Foundation for meetings regarding specifically this issue, and they wanted to hear artists' response and artists' ideas. Some of those ideas, I think, percolated, and some of those ideas began to be the seeds for the necessity of something to happen, and joining forces with Ford and eventually USA Artists. So both arts administrators, artists, institutions that had benefited from the NEA were beginning to deal with the situation of all of a sudden the lack of individual funding of artists, or the lack of political courage on the part of our government to actually continue to fund the individual voice. And this, as a matter of fact, was a political problem, not just an issue of money, right? Oh, yeah. So it makes to me a great deal of sense that when USA begins as a project, it actually appropriates the whole name, USA. Which I thought, as President Clinton would say, would be a brassy move, right?
Quite intentional.
Right, quite intentional. But to just claim that site as a site for voices, mostly, for creativity, and to focus on the individual, and then the larger group of individuals. So when I was nominated in 2011, I had to do a little bit of homework. I had heard about USA Artists, but I didn't know exactly so much about it. And you understand that you learn about the institution, and you understand that you're part of a larger group of artists who have been vetted by curators, artists, writers, academics, administrators throughout the country, right? Not just on a bi-coastal region. And that you may be included, I myself, in a visual arts group, but you are also part of a larger group of emphasis of groups for filmmakers, groups for dance, a group for theater,
literature,
writing,
media,
literature, and media,
design.
And then you look at the past. But for me, it was 2011 when you started, right?
2005 we started.
2005.
So we're about to announce our seventh year.
Right. So there were 5 or 6 years before. So you start to look at the names of artists, writers, and thinkers who, So on just that level, it was incredibly flattering to be nominated. The nomination was actually, or the application was actually very simple. And it was very brief.
Also intentional.
Very easy to do. Basically, they had, USA had already designated a group of artists that they wanted to look at that year. And basically, you had to just say, I'm interested in this, and just reiterate what you are, and maybe perhaps say what you were working on. So, needless to say, incredibly flattering to receive those funds. They're not designated for any single project or single thing. So artists like myself maybe using it like I did in production of work and continuing research, right? One aspect of that work funded by USA Artists, I can say, is a particular body of work that I just started to exhibit at Christopher Grimes in Santa Monica. But a good chunk of that actually went into funding insurance when I left one academic institution, and there's a lag period before the next academic institution, and all of a sudden I had to do COBRA payments.
Right.
USA Artists funds were there, and they helped in that institution. And then a little bit is still left over because the project that I started, Santa Monica, will have, together with other funding sources, some other development that will debut in Europe next year. And so you like to package that. And then some of those funds were earmarked by my wife and I, who's my CEO, or why do you call it FCO, right? Financial Chief Officer, right?
CFO.
To designate to also give back, right? So anonymous USA project donations by artists, I'm not the only one who does it, and other sort of, I'm on the board of governors of Skowhegan, so I support them. So these things kind of filter back and forth. The other thing that I'm also able to do as a USA Artist panelist is recommend 5 artists to be considered who may not actually have
Credentials.
the credentials that meet the USA Artist project. In other words, they might not be teaching at a graduate school. They may not have had a residency or a Driehaus Foundation. So you, Jason, automatically are in the pool that can be considered, and you should actually do something about that. But I get to submit some artists that I know are working hard, well-deserving, but may not have those credentials. So that is an important leverage. And the last thing I want to say is, then you also want to give back and include it. So I was invited to be on this year's selection panel. So one of the artists or curators or administrators who are looking at the hundreds of visual arts recommendations and trying to make a difficult decision to call that down, which was an intriguing sort of experience because you're seeing things coming from across the nation. You're seeing that USA Artists is actually doing what they say they do, that they're actually concerned about different regions and concerned about different approaches. And you're also looking at artists that are deserving of this fellowship in different sort of categories and levels. So there is the respected veteran who just needs to be acknowledged. He's been out there doing work forever, right, and needs to be acknowledged. There might be a mid-career artist like myself. We got a situation. But there might also be like an emerging artist that no one has ever funded, right? And you look also for those sort of possibilities. So working on that panel really actually introduced me to the value and worth of USA projects. And I hope when you announce in, I guess, December, the new recipients of the fellowships, right, that we will have myself and co-panelists and the board and the anonymous nominators out there in the world will have done our jobs well and present to you, to our community, the new 50 fellows, you know, who are deserving of the fellowship. I think I'll stop there. Right?
Both you, Inigo, and Deborah, I'm going to ask Deborah to comment on it first and then go on down the line because I want to get our executive director's take on this too. We directors are very proud of quality. This is something that we really strive for, and we talk about it among ourselves. And I think that when you, as a panelist, as a former recipient, make recommendations, that's a vetting. The whole process is a vetted process through the nominators, through the panelists. On the other hand, on the we do it quite differently on the projects, Deborah. But is there an added extra aside from the money, that the fact that this is not only dollars that you've achieved, but a status that you have received by being on our website? Am I right about that?
Yes, I think one of the main attractions for being selected by USA Projects to post your video and fundraise is that it is a vetted process, and not everyone can post. Also, I think some of the other sites that have fundraising capabilities are much broader than the arts, and I think USA Projects is special in that it really focuses on USA artists. So beyond the money, yes, I think it has a prestige.
Well, Indigo, let me ask you the question this way. There's always conversation of enlarging the pool of artists who might be considered. And can you balance out for us the idea of more artists being in the pool, or the idea of staying selective, vetted, credentialed? How would you come down on that?
Are you talking about the website, Jack, or the fellowship program?
Well, I'm talking about the website now. I mean, I understand Indigo won a fellowship, but he's quite aware of the projects.
Absolutely.
And I'd be interested in your take as an artist as to the direction that we might go. Because, Todd, we talk about this. So, this is a fellow who's been in the fray. So I wonder how you balance that out.
Well, I mean, maybe my hope is for USA artists to actually become incredibly successful. That one way you sort of expand that project is that you expand the more fellowships, right? More fellowships. You need to be a very strong institution to do that. So that's my hope. I do actually. There's two things. Like there are many ways that I think, both as an artist, but then maybe also having experienced being as a panelist, things that you want to consider. And interestingly, some of them follow kind of academic vetting procedures as well. It's really interesting, and some of them don't, right? So the issue of quality, right, is very important. But you have to realize that we might actually be looking at range of work in very different disciplines, right? So it's also important to add to quality impact, right? In other words, what is the impact that this artist has had within their particular field? Or when you're thinking about a younger and emerging artist, can you invest in that artist because you actually believe that the work that they're doing right now as a younger artist will have an impact within their own field or installation? So quality is something that can be measured. I mean, here at the art fair, they're measuring quality in all sorts of funny ways, right? And there is a lot of sort of impact happening here. But we want to measure quality and impact in terms of the sort of larger discourse of art.
Kathy, in that regard, Indigo made a very interesting comment. We have 8 disciplines. How do we deal with the issue of quality across 8 disciplines?
Let me just say what the disciplines are, because it just helps to put some context around it. We fund in architecture and design, craft and traditional arts, dance, literature, media, music, theater, and visual arts. And of course, in each of those disciplines are lots and lots of different genres. So we invite about 200 people a year to be nominators for the fellowship program. And we really look for people who have a lot of experience in all these genres. So in music, you want people who know jazz and blues and bluegrass and classical music. In the visual arts, you want people who understand video, 3D work, 2D work. in literature, it's fiction, nonfiction, poetry. In media, it's television, film, radio. So we need to find those experts all over the country. And we have a database probably of nominators now of about 5, 6, 7,000 people, and every year we're pulling off 200 fresh people. So there's new people that come to the table every year, which is great. Then you have the panelists that have to be selected, and you want people who have deep knowledge in a particular area, but who also can play well with others. So, because there's a lot of debate and dialogue that goes on, and so, you know, and I would say by and large, if you've got a good person running that program, which we have had, good things happen. Not always. Sometimes there are battles at the table, but usually by the end of the day, people have come to decisions together. But you know, you're looking for people who really have that ability to go deep, but can also appreciate broad.
Well, this the other word that came out, and Deborah, this does not apply to Inigo, because Inigo went through this process and became a fellow. Deborah had the project. You mentioned the word assistance. Another thing that we pride ourselves on is that we have folks in-house who can help you reach your goal. And you mentioned it briefly, you want to elucidate a little bit on the kind of help that there are artists in the room. That's why I want you to speak to this. The kind of help you get to take it from your idea to where you're successful.
Well, when I actually was able to call USA Projects and reach a person on the end of the phone.
Doing better than with your bank.
Yes, yes. So that was great that I was able to speak with somebody, and I pretty much had my video ready to go at that point, but this person was able to upload the video on a private server, take a look at it, make a few last-minute suggestions, and so I was able to adjust based on this feedback. And again, I think the other feedback I got too was on the perks, the items, the artwork that I'm offering in exchange for support.
You mentioned that word. Why don't you explain that a little bit too? I was going to ask you about that too.
The perks. Is it called perks?
It is.
Okay, perks.
It's their perks.
Yeah, perks. So when you post your project, in order to get support, you have a list of items that if people donate at a certain level, for example, at the $150 level for my project, they were able to get a print related to the Justice at Work project. We also had note cards for $25. The most expensive item was $10,000. We will fly you to Kassel. You will be able to work with us in the entrance hall to the Amtsgericht. No one took us up on that offer, unfortunately. But so there was a range from $25 to $10,000 to support this project. And I think people become interested when they see that they're going to get something back in return for their support. And so this was also discussed with a representative of USA Projects, and that was helpful.
We don't want the perks to be onerous for the artist. We want these things to be simple, easy. And we ask the donors if they want perks, and actually 52% don't take anything, which is just interesting.
And not all the artists offer perks, is that?
No, they don't.
I mean, that's another thing. It's not a requirement to offer perks. You know, the word was used, and in Chicago it's used quite differently. The word patronage was used. That's in my vocabulary, but not necessarily in everybody's vocabulary. This is, Kathy spoke about this as a patronage. Is this patronage? Are you in sales? Do you feel, is there any diminution of your status as an artist by having, you know, your hand out? And you go, you didn't do it this way, but I'd like you to comment on this too. Because it is going to a public. How does that feel, going to a public? You've done this in other circumstances, and you go, so you can answer it generally. Deborah did it at projects. Just wonder how you feel about gaining patronage.
About getting patronage?
Well, about having to go out and seek patronage is a better...
Well, I mean, I think that one of the things about USA Artist Fellowships is that first you're invited, or you're told you're nominated. You don't have to seek it. You can say, I don't, well, thank you very much. I don't want it or need it. So
And a few people have.
right, and that I think makes sense in some cases. But so in many ways, I think both for USA fellowships and also USA projects, the fact that you've already been for USA projects vetted, it's that when you're nominated or when you're allowed to be put on the list, you actually have been vetted. This is it's not about asking for something. You were already deserving to say, yeah, I can apply for this. I have, there's some interest or reason behind this and so forth. So there's something about USA Artists that takes it away from a patronage system for me, It's
Deborah, you have the same feeling?
About the patronage?
Well, about the ask.
It's
For
for
those
me,
of us who work in the not-for-profit world, sometimes we talk about the ask.
the ask. For me personally, it's always hard to ask, but I think the project for me meant so much, and it meant so much for the artists who were participating with me that I had to get over the ask. So I just had to ask.
Well, I would like to have those of you who are in the audience participate in this, and but a personal privilege, one more point of personal privilege. Todd, our longtime director, chairman of projects, anything you want to add to what has been said here today? Todd is a huge factor in our operation, major philanthropist out of Omaha, does great things across the boards in the arts, and a very important member of the USA board. And he's here today. I can't not let you speak if you wish.
I'll take just a quick stab at.
You want the come on up here.
Who's an artist here in the group? Oh, you got a mic? Who's an artist here?
Good.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Great. So, one of the things we were talking about, we've had a couple conversations today.
Can you come up here?
Is
But no filibusters. It's a short statement.
right. Professional development and learning how to raise money is not, it's not an easy task. And a lot of us, I've been raising money as a nonprofit volunteer for 25 years, so it's gotten easier for me. But, it's these, and so what we're trying to do with USA Projects is create a platform that artists can use to help them, to help yourselves. And I think it takes away some of the difficulty of the ask because you're doing it in an aggregate way. We've got 19,000 donors on the site, 28,000 members, and you're bringing your own social network, your own email list, your own friends, and their enthusiasm to the process. So I would just encourage you to think about, this is a tool, a platform that you can use, and there's a lot of different ways that you can use it, and you get out of it what you put into it. So
Thank you, Todd. Didn't want you to be here and not
Thank you.
have a
Thank you.
chance to say a few
Jack,
words.
may I just add one
Sure,
point, jumping
sure.
off of Todd?
Sure.
What we're doing one of the most important things we're doing with the website is creating a platform, as Todd said, for you as an artist to develop a relationship with your donors, your contacts, your friends, fans, followers, that you will take advantage of for the rest of your life. So we want, your first project to be your first project, but we want you to keep coming back, posting new projects and raising more money. Why? We know that the more you stay in touch with your individual donors, the more they will give you over time. 90% of all philanthropy in America, this is $300 billion is given every year, 90% comes from individual donors. So we are now providing you as artists the tools to create your own donor platform where you can be communicating with people throughout the rest of your career. It's a very important sort of foundational philosophy of the site.
Now, who's got a question?
Question.
I'm sure we have questions in the audience. Go ahead, please. I'll retry. Oh, we got the question over here first? Fine.
Yes.
Then we'll get the mic to you.
I'm pretty familiar with Deborah's project. She's been religiously posting images on Facebook.
Yes.
And it's been very educational and thought-provoking and stimulating, and Thank you for doing that, Deborah.
Thank you for bringing that up.
I'm curious, not being familiar with USA projects, what could you maybe list or state maybe 2 or 3 other types of projects that you would fund?
In the website?
Being an artist, I'm wondering, well, what would what kind of project are you even looking at?
It's really, Inigo's right. They're all over the place. I'll give you a couple of fun examples. The oldest person on the website that I'm aware of is a writer, a poet, who's in his early 70s. And he wanted to create his own small website where he would post a series of letters that went back and forth between he and a mentor of his from the 1960s. This is another famous poet, and he wanted to just publish this and let people be able to see it. And he raised $6,000. He'd never done anything like this. He was absolutely delighted. He had so much fun. He said, never in my life did I think I'd use the word blog or blogger, and let alone be one. And so, it's been sort of interesting to see someone like Wesley McNair is his name, and he's the poet laureate of Maine, the state of Maine. A lot of choreographers have put up projects, so they need money to make a new dance. They've got to hire a costume designer, a lighting designer, dancers, rental space. Others have, there was an artist in Philadelphia who raised money to build a kiln in the basement of a church where she teaches ceramics. So it's really all over the map, kind of a soup to nuts experience, which makes it a lot of fun, actually.
Including, I love going to the project because the project site, because you get to see what other artists are wanting to work on and
thinking about,
and what they're thinking about, and they're I think they're no matter every one of them is extremely sort of ambitious and committed to their projects. I think that one of the things is that what you start to realize when you're on the USA Project site is that that each individual is actually surrounded by a whole bunch of projects, and so it's sort of like builds you up. You're in really good company, and as a funder or supporter of an individual project, you actually many times know that the overall group is of such a high quality, unique quality, that your support of that one individual person is almost like guaranteed to, in a sense, bring back far more things. There's one artist I remember, and I threw some money at this one, as I was like, just wanted to take a pilgrimage and get off the grid. Things had just too much, right? Too much. And they needed to rethink, right, their position. And you look at it, and I looked into the resume, and I go, well, yeah, no, that's doing fine, but I can understand that. So the project that was funded was, I don't know.
Time, the gift
right,
of time.
It's time, right? So it ranges,
The gentleman over, well,
Yeah, I was just wondering,
he's got the mic, and he's going to bring it to you thereafter.
with the application process, is it similar to writing grant proposals? Is there a component to it where you're trying to structure costs and everything and try to...
You're talking about USA Projects?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really an application. It's a really simple little online form. And once you've submitted that, we have a couple of curators who vet those. This guy's got the credentials, great. Now let's look at the project. And then we meet with you and talk about the project. And one last time, a curator will look at it before the project goes up on the site. But, by the time you've gotten to that point, 99% of them get onto the site. So it's one of the things we really pride ourselves on at United States Artists is keeping things simple. Our application processes are simple. Our process for getting on the website is simple. We just want to make your life as easy as possible. Artists have enough pressure to make ends meet. We want to just keep it simple.
We're gonna.
That answered my question.
Oh, okay, good.
Any other questions from the audience?
I think that also, if I'm right,
Please.
I mean, when I experienced the website myself, if I'm right, it's not like all of the projects are on all the time, right?
Right. Once there are projects that are up and live and raising money all the time, and when they go down, others are coming up. So it's a very dynamic space.
But so if you're visiting the site, or if you get your project posted, you're almost guaranteed that during that period of time that you are up and posted, that you're not part of like this huge sort of chaos.
It's not 100,000 projects.
Right?
No.
And that's part of what that support group does, the administrative group in USA Partners does, is really work, I think, with the artists who are posing for USA projects, also to think about when is the best time
Correct.
to put up the project,
Right.
right? Either in terms of your production or in terms of what's going on within the website itself. And I think that's, to have somebody actually looking at that.
And
who
time of year
is
also.
tracking the success
Yeah.
of how they do it is very important. And that does not happen in any other sort of micro-philanthropic website kind of funding areas.
Todd?
I was going to make a comment about that, which is, we want to see every project succeed. The success rate, as Kathy said, is 78% of these projects get fully funded or even actually exceed their funding, which is far and above what you see in the quote microfunding industry as a whole. And we do that by providing service and by helping by helping to show you what is the best way to market this, and asking you to access certain donors. And we've had recently we had a project where an artist had had a donor that had given $500 in the past and actually gave $25,000 for a project. This was this big film project that funded for $122,000. So that you kind of never know what's going to really grab somebody's attention. So it's it's that kind of a focus that really helps the site succeed.
I have to say something about that $120-some thousand. I said this at the board meeting. We know, let me put it this way, let's not have people get put off by the fact that someone raised $122,000 and say, oh my God, this is not the league I am able to play in. That's not what USA is about. We're very proud of that. It was a remarkable success. It proved a lot of things that we're doing correctly, I think. But we're really still about the more modest ask, the more modest amount of money, a circumstance where going in, Deborah, you're not going to get a 20. You didn't get the 10, notwithstanding a trip to Castle.
That's right.
And be able to work with you. But I'm being a little facetious here, but we're about helping people in the arts in 8 disciplines in the broadest way. So before I conclude, Kathy, how does one get on the website?
www.unitedstatesartist.org. It's pretty simple. Another
We
question?
have another question.
I have one more question.
That's
Please.
fine.
Again for Deborah. I'm curious what level of involvement that USA Projects had with you specifically finding lodging for 3 months for yourself and the 2 individuals from South Africa. Like, did you have to do that yourself? Were you in a hotel? Were these private residences that perhaps were your contacts?
USA Projects really was only about fundraising, but all the other details of the project, the lodging, the food, the airfares, the visas for the artists from South Africa, which almost didn't happen, all the myriad of details were my responsibility. So no, USA Projects is only about funding and getting that funding. I did have to list my budget and submit that, but that was only so that they had a sense that yes, this was an actual project and it actually did need funding.
And did you know those 2 artists already, or did somebody link you up with those 2 in South Africa?
I had spent about 3.5 weeks in South Africa with the Kaiskama Art Project in 2010, and I had met about 20 of the core people. There's almost 100 women who work with this project in South Africa, but there's about 20 leaders. And since I was pretty comfortable with all 20, I let them decide which 2 would be coming. And I was very shocked when the one man in the group was chosen, as well as one of the women in the group were chosen to come together. So it was actually one man, one woman, myself, and then we had a rotating 4th artist because there were 4 places in the apartment. So there were 8 other people who came through the 14-week period from either the United States, Spain, or Sweden. So that was also coordination on my part.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, being one who does not believe in overstaying his or her welcome, thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Indigo. Thank you, Kathy. And thank all of you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.